let's start with this. Like everybody, like Roadhog, when we did the most hated hero list, like Roadhog was pretty remarkably consistently hated, even when he's not particularly strong. Whereas a lot of the other tanks are more hated dependent on their meta strength. Roadhog has been universally hated. And the best part about Roadhog's universal hate is that he's been universally hated for years. Like you can literally draw lines back to Roadhog hate 7 years ago. 7 years of hate for Roadhog. And there's been different reasons why he's been hated over time, but he's arguably the most hated character in Overwatch history, up there with Mercy. But the thing that makes Roadhog unique is not just the longevity of the hate, but also the broad hatred. Where Mercy players are really hated by like tanks and or DPS players especially, right? But everybody hates Roadhog. Everybody hates Roadhog. And the best part about Roadhog is, like Mercy, is there's been a few iterations of Roadhog, and he continues to be annoying despite that. If Hog is so hated, why do people play Hog? Why do people play Hog? Because he's easy? I disagree with that. I think Hog has one of the higher skill floors of all the tanks. You heard me right. In other words, to pick up Roadhog, being a new player, I think Roadhog is one of the hardest tanks to pick up. Now, not the hardest to master by any means. But I think the mechanical entry-level mechanics makes this character like really awkward to play. Yeah, I think Hook is one of the most satisfying things in the game to land. For sure. For sure. I think there's two reasons why people play Roadhog. Two reasons. So number one, Hook just is amazing, right? And the second thing is this. It's autonomy. It's the feeling, whether it's true or not, of that I'm not reliant off of my team for me to be able to just have fun. You're not relying off of your team. You can just do your own thing, right? Now, obviously, that's not true, right? At least all the way. But it's the fact that, oh, I have autonomy. I can do whatever I want, right? You don't have to rely on support. You don't have to rely on your team. And this was even true back in Overwatch 1 where, like, oh, yeah, with a previous tank, like, oh, I don't have to rely on my other tank to take space. I can just kind of do my own thing. So that's why people play Roadhog. And the funny thing about that is that also is really, I guess we can start with the first reasons why people don't like playing with Roadhog. It's because he's not, on paper, a team player. You see, even back in Overwatch 1, when people played Roadhog, it's because he was strong or whatever, but Roadhog functioned largely the same. No pun intended. He kind of took his position, he fished for hooks, he did damage, he healed himself when he was low, and he didn't really work with his team all that much. Now, you did have to take the timing and what angles you take and who you contested. You did support your team, but you supported your team in a way that was essentially a DPS. When people say that Roadhog is a third DPS, they're right in the fact that he doesn't provide any sort of intangible support to his team. There's no support through Bubble, Matrix, there's no support through Rhine Shield. And there's also no indirect value of, hey, look at me, bait your attention. And then I'm kind of even Ramacha, right, is like he's a big threatening guy. He doesn't really protect his team at much beyond the one shield, but he is not going to one-shot you necessarily. He's just kind of be a punching bag for his team. And people appreciate that, right? Not even shout, right? People appreciate that. People look at that and be like, oh, that guy's, he's sacrificing himself, or he's providing value or peeling or helping or pressuring. And we've talked about how some of our impressions of tank as being only a tank or damage sponges is inaccurate, but Roadhog has always been exclusively pressure, no real protection. And that is annoying. It's like the equivalent of playing with a hotshot in your sport of choice. It's somebody that never compromises their own value for the team. They're only playing for themselves. Now, you might win the game because they're really good at the game, but it's never about you or you or you or you. It's only about me. So psychologically, it's already annoying. If we win because of a Roadhog, it's because he's just going to hit a bunch of hooks and kill people. You're not really contributing to the team value. Now, does that mean that's a fundamentally flawed character? Not really, but it is unique within the tank slot because most tanks provide at least a little bit of indirect value, right? At least a little bit, or at least give the impression of providing that, right? So that's the thing. And the thing is that when people are looking for something to just get free value, it feels so easy to choose Roadhog, right? We talked about why do people play Roadhog in the first place, and they just want the autonomy. They want the individual selfish value, and that even attracts the wrong type of player for what we're trying to do within the role. You might be like, well, then I'd like to have a character that appeals to DPS players, but it's not just the DPS players, it's also the DPS or the tank player that's mad at their team. You see, if you think about it, when do people swap Roadhog? When do people swap Roadhog? It's not because, oh, it makes the most sense in the situation. 95% of the time. They go Roadhog because they're upset at their team. And they're either directly or indirectly want to either, I want to do what I want to do, or I want to screw you over by picking Roadhog. I got something to prove. I got something to prove you. You guys suck. You guys suck. I'm just going to play my own game. Right? And so it's anger. It's an emotional response. And do you see how that's probably going to correlate to people hating Roadhog even worse? Because whenever people think of Roadhog, they may not even consciously think of it, but unconsciously or subconsciously, they're associating all those games where something unpleasant goes badly. Before roll lock, their DPS or their tank just gives up and goes Roadhog. Or in current 5v5, their tank goes mad and he just swaps Roadhog. And they're not even good. And this is maybe the worst failure of Roadhog of all. Thank you for the sub. Is that what does failure look like with Roadhog? This may be the most underrated, most important reason why Roadhog is a terrible tank. What does failure look like with Roadhog? In fact, let's actually go backwards. What does failure look like with Winston? What does failure look like with Winston? You guys have all seen it. Dies. You've seen it, right? What does failure look like with D.Va? D.Va's a little bit hit or miss. You can live a long time, but demeched again. Again. What does failure look like with Doomfist? Junker Queen. Even Malga, right? Heck, even Orisa. We all know the answer, right? Reinhardt, certainly. The failure is death. Failure is death. At least the obvious failure, right? So you talk about so many of these other tanks, even the tankier tanks, a lot of the failure that they have most of the time comes through dying. And why that's important is it's feedback. It's not always the most accurate and contextual and nuanced feedback, but it is feedback. Whereas a failure with Roadhog is this. And you might go, oh, man, my hook accuracy is really bad, right? But you might also do this and then do dopamine, 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 heal myself, dopamine, missed again. But you know what? Dopamine, shoot that tank. Bam, 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 bam. Dopamine, 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 dopamine. Oh, I'm okay. Heal, heal, heal. Feed with some ult charge to the enemy team. Oh, that's okay. Dopamine, dopamine. You understand what I'm saying? You can actually feel like you're doing things and miss the biggest spike of value in your entire kit. And it feels right, but it's not. It's not. I'm shooting that tank. I'm going to break that shield. Whoop, I missed the hook, but that's okay. I'm not even demanding all that healing for my support, right, guys? So you have my own health self-heal, not realizing that your Moira's throwing like 7 heal orbs your way, right? You just kind of exist and do your thing, And a lot of people look at that and be like, yeah, that's why Roadhog's so easy. But I would go opposite. That's why Roadhog's so easy to screw up, because you feel always like you're doing things, even if the biggest spike in your value is not actually happening. And so you get incorrect feedback. The feedback is lying to you. Yes, similar to Orisa, but I would argue even worse than Orisa. Because you feel like, oh, I'm self-sufficient. I'm not I'm a hindrance to your team. Yeah, but the enemy tank, even though he or she may be dying, is creating more space, forcing more CDs, maybe demanding fewer resources, building a more valuable ultimate, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And you do that, and that's it. Like, your value tanks, and people just don't realize that, especially because you can just, sit here and do chip damage all day long. So the problem is there's not immediate feedback off of your failure. So that's why Roadhog fails. There's no immediate feedback on your failure consistently. And the reason why people play him is because they want that autonomy. They don't want to have to be the team player, and people resent that. And it leads to a really, 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 really ugly feedback loop. So let's talk about Roadhog's existence here in terms of what value he gets historically. Roadhog has always been a one-shot skill. So not only is that a problem in terms of exactly how much value and how much feedback that you're getting from the failure, but the problem from this also extends into when you're playing Roadhog, all of your skill is pretty much tied into your hook. A lot of it is. So you're thinking, okay, why is that such a bad thing? You know, it's like a lot of the other one-shot characters. Well, the problem is who gets mad when you get hooked? Who gets mad when you get hooked? Who gets mad when you get hooked?
Someone needs to fill this out.
Right? Everyone does. So why is it that when we're talking about one-shots, we're not mad at a Reinhardt charge, but we're mad at a Roadhog hook? And you might be mad at a Reinhardt charge. You might have been mad at a Hanzo shot, right? You might have been mad at a Widow shot. One-shots are annoying. But why is Roadhog's hook so much more infuriating? And for so many people? Risk, right. Widowmaker's existence is risk. Now, she might play a million miles away, and that's when Widowmaker is the most annoying. But if she's playing on a lot of maps, there is some threat to her, and you can outplay or counterplay that. It's when you can't that people hate Widowmaker. Hanzo, same thing. You can just kill the guy. Now you're like, well, I can't reach him, or he just was spamming down a choke, and that's why I really hate him. Okay, then again, it's the same thing. Those are the one-shots that I don't like. Reinhardt, a pin, random pin, annoying, but if he pins into my backline and kills somebody, if you're mad at that, maybe that's your problem, because again, risk. The problem with Roadhog hook is when you see a Roadhog peek at angle here, what's your counterplay to this there? What's your counterplay? What's your counterplay? Cover. Don't forget he's there. Right? So then do you punish the Roadhog? So Roadhog, oh no, he missed the hook. So how do you punish the Roadhog now? What's your counterplay to the Roadhog? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. You can't even push him because he's going to vape and walk away. You can't even animate him. The most of the time with the range that hook operates and the health pool you're doing, if you miss a hook, you cannot punish the guy. You see, this ties back into what we were just talking about, where the punishment is missing the hook and the lack of value that he gets afterwards. You get what I'm saying? The punishment is that, oh, now the Roadhog is not particularly useful. But that doesn't feel good for me playing into the Roadhog. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's, either I deny the burst of value and then go back to ignoring him, but when a Reinhardt misses a charge, or Widowmaker takes an aggressive angle, and I know snipers are not the best example. In fact, they're a pretty bad example. But if any other character, even a Venture, right, or Echo or a Genji dashes in for a combo, there's a risk involved in that play. And so if they fail, the result is what? Death. And you are the one that delivers it. And that is feeling good. That feels good. Roadhog misses hook. He's basically good as dead. But the problem is he doesn't know it. And you don't know it. You don't feel good. Oh, wow, guys. High fives, everybody. Nice juke on that hook. Good job on that cover usage. Great movement. Nice job, guys. We're more likely to win this fight now. You don't get the feedback for that, right? You don't get the feedback for it. So that's not rewarding to play versus a Roadhog in the same way that it feels to reward any other mistake from anybody else. So a lot of it comes down to focus the hog when he's playing aggressively. Avoid the hook. Oh, hook down, ignore him. And that's just a terrible gameplay loop where somebody's incredibly important and then totally useless, but when they're totally useless, they're not in the spawn room. Here's a hot take, guys. If you're a totally useless hero, you should be in the spawn room. You should be in the spawn room, right? You should be in the spawn room. That's why people hate Kiriko. It's the same thing. What's the risk out of Kiriko taking an off angle and poking you? What's the risk for the Kiriko? The risk of death with Suzu and TP. Tell me about it. Almost zero. Almost zero. Because what does she do? She Suzu, she TP's out. Now the question is forcing Kiriko to TP out and forcing Kiriko to Suzu herself and her losing the angle value? Yes. Massive value. Huge work. Timothy, thank you for the sub. It's very good for your team. It significantly increases your chances of winning the fight by forcing Kiriko, TP, and Suzu. Very great. Good job. But I don't like it! It's not fun. Oh, I foresee TP and Suzu. We're going to have a so-and-so percentage of winning the game. But I don't care. Right? I don't care. And that's why you have all these people complaining about Kiriko, because they're like, oh, Kiriko is broken. No, she's not OP, but you don't see that we won the fight after forcing your TP and Suzu necessarily. You don't get that dopamine of actually securing the kill. And see, that's why flanks should involve risk. There needs to be risk involved when you'd make plays. That's why, while permanent stealth, I'm not a fan of that for the reasons that I just explained. But at least the translocator change. I know some people were like, oh, I don't like translocator, all somber dumb. But you know what? At least the new translocator, there's risk involved whenever you go for backline. You might die. You might die. And so when I kill a Sombra that's messed up her translocator, everybody's happy. You know why? Because the Sombra goes, I messed that up. Or at least she should. And the person that killed Sombra says, yeah, get fricked, baby. Woo! Enjoy the spawn room, trash can. You know what I'm saying? There's actual risk involved. And that's what we want. That's what we want. There needs to be risk. And the problem, going back to Roadhog here, and I hope that we're tying, you see how we're tying this all in, is that when a Roadhog makes a mistake, you don't get the dopamine of punishing that mistake like you do with other tanks. You do not get the punishment. You don't get the dopamine. The counterplay isn't obvious. The counterplay in many ways, and see, this is why this also applies to a couple of the characters, but the counterplay to Roadhog is oftentimes a character like Reinhardt. And you're like, oh no, Reinhardt gets countered by Roadhog. Not really. Not really. Because if you shield the hook, you will lose less HP than the Roadhog will lose. And so what ends up happening is his supports, he has to use more resources or demands more resources than you do, so that then you will indirectly win the fight on main, or you will win the fight on the flanks. If you're falling asleep out of boredom, you and me both. That's not a very fun way to win the game. Oh, I shielded your hook. Yay. Right? I win now. And the best part about it is the Roadhog's probably had more fun than you because he gets to keep shooting. You know, he's stupid. You know, he doesn't know what's going on, but he's like, oh, I love this matchup. I'm countering the Reinhardt. You know, you just pound away on your shield. You know, and so there has to be like more direct feedback about when you fail a play. And that hasn't changed. Back in Overwatch 1, we had a period of time. You guys remember the priority pass? You guys remember the priority pass? Where, I mean, they've talked about it recently in the dev blog, and they're like, you know, hey, we need to get people playing tank back in old 66. Let's get people playing tank. We knew exactly. Now, yeah. Again, another mark against Roadhog players, because that's all people would do. Oh, let's just farm up. Let's just play get some nice, satisfying hooks. I don't care about winning. I don't care about losing. Let's just lock Roadhog. And again, this also goes back to the design flaw of the character is so incredibly selfish and one-dimensional that if you pick Winston Roadhog, get fricked. If you pick Diva Roadhog, get fricked. Zarya Roadhog, also fricked. Sigma Roadhog, a little bit better, but mostly frickage. Arista Roadhog, oh, now that's an old meta comp, but still bad, so you're fricked. You know what? Wrecking Ball Roadhog. Get fricked. Especially. Get fricking to the extra level fricking them. Okay? And it's just more fricking. And basically there's no value there outside of from kind of holding an angle. And it's not even like, oh, Roadhog players are selfish. That's all you can do is hold an angle and shoot things, right? You just shoot things, right? There's no synergy, there's no complement. You know, even in Reinhardt Winston compositions, which weren't like, you know, not the best synergy there, but there's you know, Winston can dive, the Reinhardt walks forward with shield and takes space. It just doesn't, it's not as creative with Roadhog, and so people really hated Roadhog as a result. But then we move into solo tank era, and Roadhog's still dominating, not necessarily always with the best win rate, although that has happened at times, but just being a general ass, obnoxious, annoying, and so on. So word on the street is, thank you for the 30 bits again. I appreciate that so much. I will name my fourth born child after you. Guys, Roadhog's getting a rework, right? What was this, like a year and a half ago? What year ago? Something? He's going to get a rework. They're going to fix all the problems with Roadhog. Now, you notice here that we haven't necessarily brought up one shot. We haven't really brought up the self-heal and so on. We've kind of brought up the environment of like what is wrong with Roadhog. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about some things that we could do. But yeah, whatever. Roadhog's going to get a rework, guys. So what needs to change with Roadhog? What needs to change? Instead of addressing, I don't want you guys to talk about hook or vape. What were the overarching goals that needed to change the Roadhog? More risk. More options with what you do. More risk. More options. Maybe a little bit more counterplay at the same time. So because Roadhog was historically something that was very vulnerable to a couple of different things. So can we address some of those pain points while also introducing pain points elsewhere? You see, the point of reworks is not to remove weaknesses. It's to address overwhelmingly terrible weaknesses while introducing other weaknesses and other aspects. People don't like characters that have ridiculously strong strengths and ridiculously strong weaknesses. It's why Widowmaker is hated, because it's very easy to counter a Widowmaker, but if you don't have the situation, the hero pool, the map for it, it's impossible. People like nuance. You don't even realize it, but you do. All the most hated characters in the game are generally very one-dimensional. So we need to introduce some choice with Roadhog, maybe some dynamics of how he plays. We need to introduce some weaknesses into his raw self-sustain and his reliance off of self-sustain, and so on, and so on, and so on. Now, one thing that Roadhog was relatively weak to, game browser includes custom games to my knowledge. The one thing that Roadhog was relatively weak to is he wasn't actually the best frontline trader because he was a bit of a damage sponge. He had no real form of damage mitigation aside from his heal, which was counterable and interruptible and put on cooldown. And so, you could shield hook and then get to swinging on the guy or shooting, poking out the guy, and kind of force him into more of a poke playstyle, right? Roadhog was historically more of a mid-range tank because of that. And so the rework comes around, and they remove all weak points with his vape. No counterplay at all with vape. They remove more frontline presence. They do not address one shot besides giving it one extra step. And then, in an already relatively simple character, once you get over the skill floor, right? They remove dynamics of playstyle and skill expression with the weapon. Let's break these down point by point. What did they do to the hook? Nothing. Okay, it's fine. Maybe there's something else that they can do with hook. Did they give him the opportunity to reposition himself? No. Okay, so let's. What else did they do? So we gave him Pigpen. Do you guys remember what the terminology with Pigpen was? More frontline presence. Hilarious. A destructible on a 12, or I think it was longer than that, second cooldown, is frontline presence, because that's exactly what a character with zero damage mitigation needs, right? More frontline presence. Perfect. Great. Nice. They added Pigpen because they wanted to make one shot a multi-step process. Okay, so it's not just hook and shot. So it has to take a little bit more time to set up. The problem with that mindset is that is the same logic that goes into people saying that give Hanzo his one shot back, just make it longer to induct. Terrible idea, because all you do now is you make it even more consequential when you don't hit that one burst of value. You hit your hook on a Pigpen target with your primary fire and the character's good. If you don't, the character's bad. How is that a successful rework? That is not a successful rework. Introducing more steps to achieve the peak and value needed for the character to do its job is not good design, because it puts him on a gameplay loop where it's essentially the same thing over and over and over and over again. Oh, and now we've made it worse. Because instead of having theoretical windows of vulnerability where you could push him after vape, right? Or you could. No, you can't, because now it's no longer on a cooldown. It's essentially heal on demand. Oh, and it has damage reduction now, so even the one counterplay or a few counterplays available weren't there. And this was especially bad because now, what was Roadhog really bad at historically? Not really good in frontline trades. Well, now not only...
was going to
thank you, Brax.
By character, but realized I'd basically be repeating
that. Sure. So now, I appreciate the bits. Now you have a character, because vape is... You ever wonder why is Roadhog now a frontline brawler? Like, not exclusively, but more frontline than we've ever seen. The reason is vape. Because now you have damage reduction on demand. Yeah. So you have damage reduction and heal on demand. So you can get into your effective range and just pound and never have windows of vulnerability. Roadhog used to not be able to do this. He used to not be able to do this. Because if you vaped at the wrong time, or you got your vape forced or canceled, you just died. But now you can. Now there's one other reason why Roadhog is better in frontline and has fewer dynamics of positioning. Roadhog back in the day could do close range damage. It just was a little bit risky. Roadhog also could do mid-range damage. It was just a little bit risky. Chat, back in the day, when you missed hook, what did you do with Roadhog? What did you do? Think about it. You miss hook, your value's down, but it's actually not terrible, because what can you do while you're waiting for hook? Alt fire. Right. You could alt fire. Because your pressure from alt fire was pretty good. You could actually do decent damage to squishies and tanks from an alt fire. So what ended up happening is, yes, you had bigger cycles of weakness. You were more killable because this was old vape. And if you missed the hook, you were able to contribute outside of the value. You could alt fire. Now, I've seen a lot of people discuss why alt fire was removed, because it was inconsistent at value. I understand that totally. I'm not saying that alt fire in the position that it was a perfect design by any means. I understand. But it's what gave Roadhog dynamics of both positioning, and it prevented Roadhog from being all or nothing. And it also allowed him to play positions that weren't point blank. That was removed. So now we have all of this is around this playstyle, bam, bam, and then brawling in the front line around our vape. Oh, and now I can use all my abilities with this as well. So there's no counterplay here. Was Whole Hog kind of inconsistent and weird with value? Yeah, a little bit. But now I have no windows of vulnerability at all. You see, people confuse dynamics and flexibility with zero vulnerability. That's not how it works. Remember, for every chink in the armor that you remove, you need to chip the armor elsewhere to make them small windows of vulnerability, and to make the engagements and choices of how you play and when you play and where you play and what you do more interesting. You have to approach things in that manner. And I think that that's what's missing with this character. Now, a lot of questions are like, okay, big guess, big guy, what do you do now? What do you do now? And I'm going to be perfectly and completely transparent with you guys. I don't know. We put a lot of time thinking about Roadhog rework. We talked about using Hog. We even said something about, like, maybe when he's vaping, he can move faster. Maybe you can use grappling also as a repositioning tool. I thought one of the more interesting changes they did was it the experimental? I don't remember what it was. When you could use hook to reposition, it actually pulled you towards a target. So what I would do is I'd hold close off angles, and then I could either use the hook to secure a kill or reposition. So you had to actually choose it. The problem with Hog is that the vape and then hook as a burst of wind, like a huge spike in your value, is pretty rough. There aren't a lot of good things that you can do with the character. You look at, like, how do you fix a character like Bastion, or how do you fix a character like Moira, right? It's hard, man. It's hard. So my recommendation with Hog is that they're going to need, they're going to need to go back to the drawing board. they're going to need to go back to the drawing board, I think, with this character. I know there are people that find a lot of value with Hog. I know that the people that enjoy Hog a lot, but he really, really offends a large portion of the player base, and for a good reason. He's not only now an anti-squishy tank, but he's also an anti-tank tank. And his value comes through existing on the front line and taking effective HP trades. But the worst thing about it is that even when he's failing, it doesn't feel like he's failing. And man, that feels like it's always a loss. It's always a loss. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board. And I'm really concerned about this because a lot of people out there, I've heard that, Roadhog functioned better in 6v6. He's fine in 6v6. The problem in 5v5 is that he just has to be this frontline brawler. Total copium, total nonsense. We played a lot of Roadhog in our 6v6, and the character was obnoxious to play versus in 6v6, just like he was for 6v6 for 4 years, 5 years, and he was also very he just sucked in 6v6 too. But before Overwatch 2 and testing it with the Overwatch 2 code afterwards, it was just awful. He is a fundamentally garbage character design. He's better in 6v6? No, he's not. Because the thing with Roadhog in 5v5 is he could be very frustrating to play versus and against, but you can just go, there's more space to go around him. In 6v6, he gatekeeps angles. He's very difficult to get out of. And playing with a Roadhog legitimately sucks because in 6v6, you are more reliant off of having not an optimal tank combo, but a functional tank combo that can at least take heat. And Roadhog is very inconsistent at doing that. So what it does is that when you're playing with a Roadhog, it's a very unpleasant experience as a tank player. It's a very unpleasant experience. Now, he's killable playing versus, so that's the upside. But the downside is it's a lot worse for the tank player that you're playing with him. So I think that, like, unfortunately, I don't like to do videos where I have nothing but criticisms, but that's all I have for here. We usually like to provide some sort of constructive feedback. We did have the tank rework project, the video. You guys can find that on YouTube. And we did have some ideas that I would like to see tried with this character, but this is like really trying to take like a bologna and banana sandwich and trying to fix it. And I don't think adding a different condiment is going to fix that problem. Are they going to delete Roadhog? No. But I think this is probably something that's going to take a long time to slowly address. I think they need to try some weird things with him. And then I hate to say this, but he needs to remain bad. He needs to remain not particularly decent, not trash tier so that anyone picks Roadhog can purposely throw the game. But he should never even sniff meta in anywhere at any time.
Every chance of the insta-kill hook being rubbed off the
Here we go.
Let's rip the band-aid off and speak some actual truth here. The players who play Roadhog don't care about the hook. They don't care about the selfishness. They don't care about the heal. They don't care about being fat. They don't care about the lore or the fantasy or the hero design at all. The players who play Roadhog only care about stomping a lobby. And I know this is the case because this is exactly the player base Blizzard has purposely courted over the years.
Wait, isn't he saying isn't they just run the lobby, like raid boss kind of a thing?
On top of everything else, we have always had to deal with the result of DPS players moonlighting in the tank queue, compounding every single problem with his kit. Because when you make a tank lethal, you make all of the components that makes a character good to smurf on better. He's by far the best solo carry in the game and has been since the game's launch. And if you're even slightly better than the enemy team, you can run tank queue while ignoring all tank synergy and gameplay without breaking a sweat at 60% plus win rate. This has always been compounded by the fact that a player from a different category looking to play tank will necessarily...
we did talk about that. Yeah, sure.
Will necessarily be competing against people lower than them in skill and smurfing if they do pick tank.
It's the same way when the people say that Mercy is not a character to climb with. You can climb the Grandmaster with Mercy, especially when she's a relatively meta character. She does have a lot of skill expression. The problem is it's not always the fastest way of doing things, right? So if you're just significantly better than every other player, picking a character that just cheats the game is the most efficient way to doing things. That doesn't matter for 95, 99% of the player population. It only matters for the 1% of player population that's either smurfing or whatever else, right?
And then it was compounded again when the priority pass forced...
And it's made worse because people are like, what's the best solo carry hero? And people are going to say, Roadhog. The people are asking... Okay, let me ask you guys a question. When people are asking what's the best solo carry character, who's asking? Who's asking? Who's asking that question? What kind of people are asking that question? Gold players, new players, silver players, players that are new to first-person shooters, players that are new to Overwatch, players that are stuck, plats. And so when you ask them and you say, what's the best low carry character with Roadhog, do you see how they're asking a question and getting an answer to a different question? The question that they really want to know is, what is a character that I can play at my skill level and improve at faster compared to other characters? And the irony is that Roadhog is almost never the answer to that question, because the mechanical floor for that character is higher than a lot of other tanks. And the feedback on failure is so ambiguous, as we talked about earlier, that it's actually not always very simple to know your path to improvement as it is with a character like Reinhardt. That's why when people ask me what's the best character to improve on, I always ask them what character they enjoy, and they say, well, I like all of them. Reinhardt, you'll get good feedback on exactly what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and he has a relatively accessible skill floor. Same thing maybe with a soldier, or I don't know, an Ana. Then you're like, oh, but those are mechanical characters. Yeah, but you get feedback. You get feedback. There's a path from point A to point B, right? And that's what's missing, right? Heck, even Bastion can get a lot of value in lower ranks, but I don't love Bastion a lot as a climbing character because you don't always get very clear feedback on what you're doing wrong. You can burn the enemy tank pretty well, but sometimes even in lower ranks inconsistently, and that can give you mixed feedback about how much value that you're actually getting. You know? Right. So, I don't know, man. It's funny. The people who are asking, the people that are asking, that are telling you, that are saying that Roadhog is a solo carry character are generally the type of people that wouldn't be asking the question in the first place.
In tanking. And the worst part,
I will say though that risk is a fundamental part of progress. Like, you want risk in your game because it's like basically, okay, let me give you guys an analogy. What is the first person shooter? What is the game? Is it Rust, where they have like a camping problem where they just kind of like AFK and just like sit in a bush for like 7 years? I know there was like some complaints about that early in COD, but like, was it Rust? I swear I heard that somewhere. Maybe it was from SK or something. Tarkov, right? Why do you not want that in your game? There's two reasons why. One, because people hate playing versus it. But two, and this is the juice, this is the sauce, this is the homegrown ranch. You get what I'm saying? The players that do that are not happy. They just think that they are. It's not satisfying. Nobody goes, yeah, I camped, woo, right? It's the equivalent of eating like, it's like eating crap, like low accessibility. It's not good. It doesn't bring you satisfaction. It's like, you guys ever get, like, you ever see that with those memes of like those boomers at the bingo things? They're just like, they literally look like they're zombies. You know what I'm saying? They're not having fun. There isn't like any enjoyable, or like, oh, even worse, it's like the 3-year-olds with the phones. They're like just, they have this whole motion down, you know? That's like the equivalent of Roadhog players. Low risk, no clear feedback on your failure. And, hit a hook there, hit a hook there, hit a hook there. Oh, I missed a hook. That's literally what you're doing. That's literally what it is. It's the same psychological phenomena. No risk involved, no immediate punishment in your thing. You just sit there and you just mindlessly throw hooks. It's bad. It's very toxic to your game environment. You create a community like that, it's terrible.